Hey, I want to introduce you to a personal friend of mine, the M41A Pulse Rifle with over and under pump action grenade launcher. Now this might look like the real deal, but this is actually all made of EVA foam and is very lightweight, and as it's made of foam, it's perfectly safe to take to Comic Cons and things. Just don't go waving it around in public if you do make one of these, because it does look pretty authentic. If you want to know how to make this, then make sure you continue watching this video and stay tuned at the end where I'll be telling you where to find the templates for this absolutely free. Right, let's get cracking. So these are the templates I've made. We're going to start with the 4 pages called full scale reference. So you're going to cut these out, and what these pages will do will give you a flat full size representation of the pulse rifle. These templates were designed to be printed on A4 size paper, and on the top right corner of each page is a little scale thing for 1 centimeter and 1 inch to make sure they're printed out correctly. This should be about 69 centimeters from the back of the stock to the front of the barrel. So once you've got all the pieces cut out, you're going to trace them onto EVA foam. I'm using 10mm thick floor mats. I don't use a Sharpie when I'm tracing my pieces because the Sharpie can show through the paint. I use the back of a knife to gently score it in, and then you're going to cut these out with a very sharp knife. You're also going to need a couple of strips of foam as well. These sizes for these can be found on the templates. Some of them need to be cut straight and some cut at a bevel. Now the back side of this handle piece needs to be smooth as it's going to be seen, so I'm going to cut off the texture as much as I can and then smooth it off with a rasp file. Now these parts don't fit together correctly, so they're going to need to be beveled, so I'm just using a sharp knife to cut along that on the edge of my table. When it comes to assembling these pieces, the way I like to do it is to tape them together with some tape that doesn't leave behind a sticky residue. In this case it's electrical tape. Making sure you've got the seams nice and straight, and doing this you're going to need to cover the entire seam. You can't just kind of tack it into place in a few points, otherwise the glue will seep through, because we're going to backfill those seams with hot glue. I've left one side open here to allow me to get that glue gun in there easier. And now those ones are done, I'm going to tape this final one up, and then I'll kind of struggle to get the glue gun in there. But at least those first few seams are nice and easy. Again, making sure I cover the whole seam with tape, otherwise the glue will seep through. Now this piece needs to be thinner. You could of course use 5mm foam, but I don't have any, so I'm just cutting this into a thinner strip. Going to heat gun it, and this is the curved inner section of the magwell. So that's going to be taped into place and gradually glued a little bit at a time to make sure you've got it nice and straight. The magwell is probably the most complicated part of this. It's a really weird shape. Moving on to the handle, that bit that we roughed up and smoothed out, I'm just heating it out of a heat gun and rubbing it on something smooth, in this case my table, just to get rid of any of the fuzzy furry texture. And then I'm going to assemble this in the same way as I did the magwell, adding bevels where I need to get the 2 bits of foam to line up, and then taping them into place and gluing them from the inside. Now with a fully enclosed shape like this, you're going to have to choose one part to not be glued from the inside, because you can't get inside it once it's all together, so I've chose that part to be the bottom. This is the top bit. I'm just gluing that down and laying that in between the 2 sides of the handle. Adding some more glue. These have been taped together as you can see. Then close the whole thing up and tape it into place. Running glue now along the top rail of the gun. And then this bit just going to hold into place. If you find you haven't got enough hands to do this, then you can use some tape as well. And then before the glue is completely set, any that's seeped out, I rub away with my finger. Now this is the part we cut out from the handle. I'm going to use that to make the bit where the bolt goes, because that bit is going to go in there anyway. There's no point wasting another piece of foam. And then one of those strips we cut out becomes the top of that. Again, tape that together, then glue it from the inside, using some bits of tape to hold it nice and square. This piece will then be glued in. So now gluing another one of those long rectangular pieces onto the inside of that handle at the bottom. This is the part that we can't do from the inside, but it doesn't really matter so much because on the underside of the gun you're not going to see it much. Plus there's those detail pieces, the handle and the magwell and the grenade launcher to cover it up. These are parts of the stock. I'm going to rough these up and then glue them together, layering 3 pieces of 10mm foam, so we've got a 3cm thick piece. Make sure you get them nice and straight. This will be glued on the back there. And we're going to do the same thing with the handle, glue 3 layers together. And then go at the back there, magwell in front of that. This is the grenade launcher, the main body of the grenade launcher. Going to heat that from the underside of the foam so you don't damage the side that's going to be painted. And then just take that into place to keep it curved. This is another one of those rectangular pieces, and this is just going to be glued along the top edge of that. And then glue on the end to put the end cap in. So now gluing the magwell to the gun, a little bit of glue on the underside of each piece, and just press that into place. It's slightly recessed back from the main body of the gun. This is 2mm craft foam. Most of the detail pieces on this build were made with 2mm craft foam. Using a very sharp knife to not drag through the foam and tear it, cut out all the little details. This took absolutely ages, especially cutting out all these parts of the grenade launcher. Just take your time with it to get them as neat as possible. And then these are all glued into place with hot glue. Make sure you go right up to the edge, because when you heat seal it later, if the edges aren't glued, they'll all lift up. Using a knife now to add some bevel to the edge of the grip of the gun. Cutting it like this is going to make it rather jagged. So once you've cut that, use a rasp file to take off as much foam as needed, and then some sandpaper to help smooth that out. You can left with some fuzzy furry bits. You can't rub a shape like this onto your table, so what I like to do is to heat it with a heat gun and then use a small teaspoon to smooth that out. Anything small and metallic will work, but I find the curvature of a spoon gets in there really well. Now marking the parts on the grip that are going to have those lines on, and then using a really sharp knife to cut those as V's. So go along each line one way and then flip the grip round and then go the other way, and those parts will just pull out. Add in the detail line of the grip now, and then to make these lines open up, you hit those with a heat gun. Just be careful not to burn the foam. This is the stock. As it's 3 layers thick, you can see the join lines, which looks horrible. You can probably get thicker bits of foam, but it'll be difficult to cut with a knife. If you had a bandsaw, it would work well. But what I've done to fix this problem is to use some of that craft foam to kind of skin the edge of this stock. Using a sharp knife to trim it. Don't forget to do the inside too, any parts that are visible. And then this is the detail part for the back of the stock. Making sure you get glue on every edge, otherwise, like I said, when you heat gun it to seal it, you'll have your edges all lift up. Gluing on some more detail pieces now. These are the little details that go on the magwell. There's a big one and a small one to go on the front and the back. And I'm now going to glue this to the gun, lots of glue. This is the grip, that just goes in there. Make sure it's nice and straight, and make sure it's on there nice and secure, because obviously you hold the gun by this. And I'm adding detail pieces to the back of the grip now, taping that into place to keep that on. These thin trim pieces here, I find it's easy to hold them down flat with a ruler just to get those started. And then once that's on there and it's nice and dry, you can gradually work your way around. Just do one side at a time, otherwise you might find it misaligns when you get back around to the beginning. And again, using a ruler just to hold that last bit down, as that's nice and straight against the detail piece there, and your fingers aren't, you might get the edge lift up. This is the stock, lots of glue again on the stock to hold that in place. Using the templates now to line up some more of the detail pieces. These are all cut out of 2mm foam, like I said. More hot glue, again right on the edge. You don't want those edges lifting up when you come to heat seal this later. I can't stress that enough. Adding details now to the grip of the gun. Now where the handle was made of 3 layers, I covered that up by adding a detail strip just over 1 centimetre wide that goes along the middle of that. Now gluing the detail to the grenade launcher, starting off in the middle and then gradually working my way out by adding glue to the 2mm foam and then rolling it on my table. This is just a piece of PVC pipe. Positioning that because I've taped on those front guard rails there, and then pushing it into the foam just enough to leave an indentation, and then I can use that pipe and just twist it back and forth almost like a drill to drill that into the foam. Use a lot of hot glue to hold that in place, and that's more or less all the parts done other than the front grenade launcher pump action thing. But before I do that, I'm going to add some more details using a wood burner. You can use a soldering iron. I use that to burn out the bolt rail, I suppose that's what it's called. And now onto the details on the handle, using the lid of a pen. Obviously you can use a brass tube to do this, but just using that in a similar way as the PVC pipe to add the hole for the barrel, and kind of drilling in a hole halfway into the depth of the foam there. Now this is that pump action part of the grenade launcher. That's again another piece of foam cut down to 5mm thick, heat gun from the back, and then that is then folded around the grenade launcher and glued into place. I'm now using the template to mark off where all of those lines go, and these are just cut out of 2mm craft foam and glued on. I cut these oversized, wrapped them round, and then trimmed off the excess. The end of each of those grenade launcher parts were made of thicker foam, and I cut a bevel in this and then used each half, one for each end. Again, these are oversized, so once they're wrapped round I can cut them flat. Now I think adding real hardware to something made of foam really adds the realism and authenticity of it when it's all done, so I like to use real screws and things like that just to add extra level of detail to it. Things like screws people see every day, and if they're not quite right it will kind of spoil the illusion, so using real screws and things really adds an extra depth to your prop. I'm now cutting off the bottom of the magwell because this is going to have a removable mag, and the mag is just going to be made out of 2-layer thick foam. Cutting out the little window where the LED display is going to go. Now the LED display itself isn't an actual LED display, it is in fact made out of some red acetate, and we're going to light it up with one of these, and this is a balloon light. These came in a pack of 24 for 10 quid, and that's going to go in the mag. I've made a little hole in the mag, so when you put the mag in, the LED lines up with the window. This is the red acetate. I folded it over so it's 3 layers thick, and it's just a case of putting that in a foam frame. But before we do that, we're going to have to add on the numbers. Now I covered this in black electrical tape, and then using a knife cut out the numbers, and this in this case is 99 as it holds 99 bullets. Just make sure you don't push so hard with your knife that you cut the red acetate underneath. So now this is glued to a foam frame. This frame is actually the part we cut out. We cut the window out, and then that's going to be glued back in, and it's going to sit perfectly flush with the gun. And then another one of these frames is cut out of craft foam and put over the top. quick test. Perfect. The whole thing is now finished and needs to be heat sealed, so we're going to use a heat gun to carefully go over every part that needs to be painted. The front guardrail I only taped on. I'm going to remove that and paint that separately, so that way I can make sure I get paint underneath it as well. That will then be glued on once it's all painted. So I sprayed the black bits with black spray paint, just black automotive spray paint from Halfords. It was matte black. Now the black parts are done, I can glue on the guardrails again using hot glue. And now it's time to add some colour. The two colours I used were sap green and raw sienna. These are just acrylic paints, and I mixed those together to make an olive green kind of colour. And then I just applied this with a soft bristle brush to minimise the brush strokes. When it came to painting the actual gun, I used a very fine flat brush and did all the little detail bits first where the green meets the black, as to not go onto the black, and use a bigger brush to then fill in the big areas. This is it after one coat of paint, which isn't enough. So I went back over it and did 3 coats, and that's now looking good. So before I use some silver paint to dry brush over the distressed areas and to fill in the bits that need to be silver, like the bolt, I hit it with a very thin coat of automotive lacquer. That way, if I'm not happy with the silver paint I put on it, it's easy to remove. Whereas if it's just acrylic on acrylic and you start rubbing it off, you're going to rub away the green underneath as well. Whereas that lacquer helps protect that base colour. So dry brushing is just basically loading your brush with a very, very, very tiny amount and then just hitting the areas that you think would naturally take damage as this gun was used, which would be usually the edges, as they're the bits that they're exposed to when you're bashing the gun around in battle and stuff. Once that's all painted, it's time to weather it some more using some burnt sienna first of all, and this is going to be mixed with some water. And I did the same with some black, mix that with some water too, just to thin it down. And then I'm going to use a big brush and just dab that on willy-nilly, and then take off most of that and smudge it about with a paper towel. And the brown goes on first, so it look like dirt, just all over the gun. Make sure you're getting all of the little nooks and crannies, and then remove most of it with a paper towel. And if you're not happy after one pass, then go over it again with some more. And do the exact same thing afterwards with some black, just to give it some more dirt and grime and make it look battle worn. After I did the weathering, I went over the whole thing again lightly with some more lacquer. I don't want to go too mad with the lacquer because I don't want the gun to be super shiny, just enough to protect the paint. Last thing to do is to unmask the little LED display. And here it is all finished. So to take the mag out, you just simply pull it out. It's held in there with friction alone. There's no catches or magnets or anything holding it in. The only thing I did add was inside the magwell, that has a piece of foam at the back here to thicken the back bit out. So that way when you put the mag in, it makes sure the LED lines up with the centre of the screen. Otherwise it could slightly twist back or forth, and then you wouldn't have the screen fully lit up. It looked like you've only got 9 bullets in there as opposed to 99. To take the LED out, you just push it through from one side and pull it through the other. Now these, when you buy them brand new, have a little thing at the back there and a cover on the front. I took the cover off, filed the front of the LED down, being careful. You can see inside the metal stuff. Don't go too low that you hit that, otherwise it won't work. And I just cut the back off, so it's the same thickness as my magazine there, so it doesn't catch as you put it in. You just twist these to turn them on. Now, if your batteries die in these, no idea how long they're going to last, but if they do die, you can just unscrew the back completely and take the batteries out and put the batteries from another one of these in there, so you don't have to modify a second one. You can't buy these on their own, I don't think. I bought mine in a pack of 24 for about £10, so they're really cheap. So you just twist that to turn it on, pop that back in the mag, and then when you slide that in, there you go, your ammo counter lights up with 99 bullets. There you go. So I'm now going to show you some close-up shots of this so you can see it from all angles, which may help you when you come to build your own. So there you go, that's how to make your own M41A Pulse Rifle. Now at the beginning of this video I did say I'd tell you where to find your own free templates for this, and they could be found over at the Facebook group called the Perfectly Imperfect Makers Community. So make sure you join that group, and all I ask in return is that you check out the social media links in the description of this video, and make sure you subscribe, follow, like, comment, all that jazz, just to help me out. Now making this was really fun, and I really love how it turned out and can't wait to take it to a con. But in the meantime, while we're all locked down and can't go anywhere, I want to make some more alien stuff. So comment down below whether you think I should make next a smart gun, motion tracker, or flamethrower. Or maybe if you can think of something else in the movies that you'd like to see me make, put that down there too. It could be anything: face hugger, chest buster, alien egg, whatever. And I'm open to ideas, and whatever I think is the coolest, I'm gonna make, and I'll make a video of it too. So yeah, that's it, I suppose. Game over, man. Game over. And remember, you don't have to be great at making to make something great. Bye bye.